Sleep with as many girls as possible, bro, is a mindset and a goal that a lot of guys chase, but is it really all it's cracked up to be? On the surface, getting with a ton of hot girls and living a player lifestyle sounds like the dream, but is it really as satisfying as it seems? Is it worth it, or is it not? Well, let's talk about the pros and cons of living a lifestyle where it's new girls all the time, and we'll start on the bright side of things by talking about some of the pros, or at least some of the perceived upside of the player lifestyle. And the first one is the lack of responsibility and commitment that a typical monogamous relationship requires. Now, I've had long-term relationships that were great and a lot of fun, but at the same time, I can't deny that there is a lot of upside to not having any commitment to a single woman. Depending on your lifestyle and what you're into, you can party until 3 a.m. if you want to. You can get up and go on vacation with the boys if you feel like it. You can invite 10 different girls over in a week if you're up for it. Or you can sit in peace and quiet all weekend without having to worry about going to a random wedding your girl signed you up for, or doing some couples activity that just bores you to tears. There are no limits to anything, whereas in a relationship, you'll be limited by what you can and can't do to some degree. This is one of the biggest benefits to the lifestyle and one of the hardest to let go once you get used to it, especially when it specifically comes to the freedom that you have to date a wide variety of women wherever you go. There are no limits to anything, whereas in a relationship, you will be limited by what you can do and can't do to some degree. Once you get good at being consistent with landing dates and raising women's attraction, it can almost feel like a game to see how many you can get. And that can be a lot of fun, but there's some downsides to that too that I'll mention later. But to wrap up this point, the freedom you have with this type of lifestyle is one that a lot of married men are envious of. It's total freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want. Now, the second pro is the one that most guys strive for when they pursue a player lifestyle in the first place, and that's variety. One of the hardest things about maintaining a monogamous relationship is the fact that routine is working against you over time. You can only sleep with the same woman so many times before it becomes monotonous, even a little bit, and living a player lifestyle solves this by allowing you to rotate girls in and out whenever you'd like. If you feel like having a white girl one day, an Asian girl another day, a thick girl this day, a thin girl that day, it's all fair game. You can have whatever you want, whenever you want, as long as you have a consistent flow of leads with women. But again, there's a warning here because this can also be highly addicting. And anything that encourages constant hits of dopamine is probably not the best thing in the long run. There's always a downside to every upside, so keep that in mind. The third benefit, or perceived benefit, is that you will develop nuclear levels of confidence and experience. One of the biggest factors for building confidence is stacking up proof that you are capable of something. And before you've really accomplished something, it's difficult to be entirely confident in your ability. And there's a degree of having to fake it until you make it. There's this issue that before you've really accomplished something, it's difficult to be entirely confident in your ability. And there's a degree of having to fake it until you make it. But when you do see that you are capable of dating a variety of girls on a regular basis, you will become very confident in your abilities with women. This is boosted even more if you really push the boundaries of what you believe you're capable of and continue to pull higher quality women over time, many of which will be women you didn't even think were possible to pull at one point. And along the way, you will also accumulate a ton of experience in various scenarios. You will know exactly how to run a date that leads to pulling the girl back to your place, how to get a girl to come straight over, or how to pull a hot girl off Instagram or at a bar, etc. A lot of this also carries over into knowing how to get a girlfriend if you want to, since you have such a firm understanding of female psychology at a certain point. Once you have faced the common scenarios that you'll see with women over and over again, you learn all the ins and outs of the game to the point where you know exactly what to do or what is most likely going to work for that scenario. You become good at thinking quickly on your feet, and all of this creates a sureness in yourself that is capable of going anywhere in the world and knowing that you can have success with women, and that is a powerful skill set. The fourth pro is that your social skills in general will just skyrocket. Constantly interacting with new girls will significantly improve your communication and social skills, making you more skilled at handling various social situations overall. You learn to handle a wide variety of personality types, cultural backgrounds, and communication styles through a wide range of social scenarios. And on average, if guys are going to hesitate to communicate in a social situation or get stuck, it's usually when talking to an attractive woman rather than just talking to another guy. And that's not to say that there can't be awkwardness or anxiety for guys to make friends with other guys. Of course that's true. But usually attractive women are the even bigger test to a guy's psyche. But on that note, you will have to overcome certain fears and mental blocks. So for example, if you hesitate to escalate with women in general, you will have to become good at it to be an effective player, or else you aren't exactly a player. But those advancements in your personal development and your ability to overcome your fears and anxieties will often carry over into better social skills and social confidence all around. Because it's pretty rare to see a guy who has lived a successful lifestyle of a player and isn't good with people overall. I'm sure there's someone, but honestly, I can't think of any off the top of my head. But anyway, this ties into building confidence through experience, and you will feel confident in any social scenario after a while. Because if you can repeatedly take an attractive woman from being a stranger all the way to your bed, your threshold to handle any social situation without anxiety or hesitation is going to be much higher. Now, the fifth benefit is that it keeps you looking attractive. An underrated and less talked about benefit is that living a successful lifestyle like this will keep you on top of your physical attractiveness. You'll be motivated to stay in shape, dress your best, and look good overall, and you will also be motivated to seek improvements to see if you can just squeeze out even better results. But overall, it keeps you on top of your game because you're constantly generating new options with women, and you know you have to be at the top of your game to do so. And if you're leveraging online game like online dating apps and Instagram to generate leads and dates with women around the clock, which by the way, if you need help with that, click the first link in the description, you will be taking new photos and keeping your profiles updated, which will also motivate you to keep everything in check physically and to stay sharp. And of course, these should be habits that you have anyway, even if you're in a relationship, but there's definitely a noticeable boost to stay on top of your physical traits when you're constantly dating new girls. The sixth benefit is that you become very good at vetting and filtering for certain types of women. After dealing with a wide variety of girls, you'll be able to identify red flags from afar and know exactly what they lead to. Your ability to vet women becomes incredibly sharp, and you start to develop like a sixth sense of sorts of what type of woman she is ahead of time. And this is seriously like a superpower compared to a guy with lesser experience who may walk straight into traps with girls because he isn't able to discern effectively and spot certain signs to avoid ahead of time. Another aspect that makes it almost a superpower of sorts is that other men won't always understand what you're talking about or won't see what you see when you're vetting a woman. They will either be clueless or doubt your judgment, like there's just no way you could be that perceptive, but it's your extensive experience that serves as a reference point that you can rely on. And many guys will simply just have to walk straight into the fire themselves to understand where you're coming from when you share your knowledge and experience. This is also potentially the biggest benefit of a player lifestyle that carries over to a long-term relationship later on if you decide to go that route, because you will be able to avoid a lot of the girls that would be bad for you in the long run because of the experience that you gained. Now, the seventh benefit is that you become that guy pretty much. Oftentimes as a byproduct of being a guy who constantly has a rotation going or is in contact with a variety of girls, you become the guy who can bring girls to a party, the club, a bar, etc. And that is always highly valuable for any social situation. Because the fact is that most guys you meet will not be able to bring one girl to a party, let alone multiple. But if you are constantly in the field mingling with new girls, it will expand your social circle in general and open up different connections that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And from there, if you generally have a good reputation with the women that you date or sleep with, you can keep some of them around as acquaintances that will allow you to have girls on tap for a social event. And as a byproduct, it will also boost your social value and attract even more girls. The result of all of this is that you will be looked at as the man by your peers, and some will be extremely jealous as well. And you will get even more social invites due to your connections and the ability to have women around you. And at the very least, you will always have a girl available to go with you to an event if need be. Now moving on to number 8, the 8th benefit is those bedroom skills. Unless you're not paying attention whatsoever, you will become very good in bed and know exactly how to give a woman a memorable experience, no matter who the girl is or what the circumstance may be. You gain an understanding of women's bodies and what turns them on that just becomes second nature, and they will be able to sense that level of confidence in you throughout the escalation process. And women can tell that you've been here before and that you're good at this, and that will keep many of them coming back for more, because you are able to provide them with an experience that they just can't find anywhere else. And being good in the sack also pays dividends in a relationship if you choose to go that route later. However, the player life doesn't come without its downsides, some of which can literally be life destroying. So let's switch it up and talk about some of the cons. And this first one can be life ending, quite literally, and that is getting Me Too'd. All it takes is for one woman to claim that you forced yourself onto her or abused her in some way, and you are instantly in deep trouble, fighting against a system that is inherently against you from the start. The laws and the courts side with women heavily, especially in the United States, and any woman can flip the power dynamic on you in a split second if she wishes to exercise the right to do so. But luckily, most women won't do this, but all it takes is that one girl who will, and your entire life is in jeopardy in the blink of an eye. And this is also why I recommend trying to be as cool as possible with girls if you're going to go with this type of lifestyle. Because I've known guys that were great at getting a ton of girls, but they were also really reckless, and they would sell the girl dreams, play mind games, play with her emotions, or promise her the world and then cut her off suddenly, things like that. And stuff like that will get anyone emotional, especially a woman. So try to avoid inflaming girls' emotions and messing with heads like that. And it may not be entirely possible, which I'll talk more about in a second, but there are certain things you can do, like not telling a girl that you love her if you don't really mean it. And I bring that up because I knew a guy specifically that would tell girls literally anything they wanted to hear just to keep a rotation going, and that created a lot of angry women once they found out he was full of BS. So you gotta be careful. In a similar vein, if you truly live a lifestyle where you're dealing with a wide variety of girls over time, you will undoubtedly run into some women who are completely insane. Some of these women may be the Me Too type, while others may develop an obsession with you and stalk you for years. There's all kinds of things that could happen. And with the stalking, I've had this happen myself, because one of the most attractive women I've dated also turned out to be one of the craziest. And as a side note, that is one of the reasons why you shouldn't get too honed on trying to date the baddest girl on earth or whatever, because you don't know what other traits she has. You could be inviting a pretty headache into your life or a pretty maniac. You just don't know. And going back to me specifically, a beautiful girl stalked me for years on end and tried some of the most bizarre tactics to get my attention over and over again. Long story short, it was incredibly weird, and you do not want that experience whatsoever. And what makes this worse is that you will have to hurt feelings along the way, and some girls simply just won't take that well, which leads me to my next point. And my next point is that as a player, you will inevitably have to emotionally hurt some women at some point. There's just simply no avoiding this. And I've always aimed to be as ethical as possible when dating, and that's not to be some moral saint that is on his high horse, but to avoid unnecessary drama. And I prefer not to sell women dreams, because you're playing with fire if she feels scorned or burned by you, and each girl's personality is different. Some women will be more emotional than others. However, no matter how careful you are or how honest you are, you will still inevitably piss some women off and break hearts. It just comes with the territory when playing the game, if that is your goal lifestyle. And when dealing with women who are just more emotional by nature to start with, attachments will form, especially when sex occurs. And I don't care how tough or casual some girl acts about her sexual liberation and freedom or whatever, they all get attached to some degree when you give them a good sexual experience. And any woman who says otherwise is lying. And any guy who says that you can live the player life without having to hurt any girl's feelings or play them at times is also lying. Even with the most authentic approach, you'll be faced with scenarios where you have to ride the edge of lying to get that girl into bed. Like when a girl asks if you want a relationship and you don't really want one, but you still want to sleep with her. This is a common scenario that a lot of guys face when they're trying to live this type of lifestyle. And again, there's no avoiding this. So understand the game that you are playing if you want to go down that path, because it's definitely not for everyone, and that's fine. I would never recommend it for everyone. Now, this next one is going to sound a bit weird because of the image we usually have in our mind of what a player is like. It's usually this image of being a stoic, smooth, badass type of dude who isn't affected by any girl and just turns them out left and right. But if you actively take part in this type of lifestyle, you will almost always have to hurt yourself at some point. And what I mean is that you will come across certain girls who hit that near ideal combination of beauty and personality to where you'll find yourself wanting to see that girl more than the others. But in order to keep that lifestyle going, you'll have to let them go at some point, just off the fact that most girls want relationships, especially if they're into you like that to keep coming back. Now, of course, some girls are fine just keeping it casual and dipping, but you'll come across girls that you really click with on a different level, and you'll have to choose between keeping her around for something more or letting her go and continuing what you're doing. And that sucks more than you'd think, because you're denying yourself something that you want for the bigger picture. And some guys might say, well, just get that girl and have girls on the side, or have that one-sided open relationship type of dynamic. But keep in mind that most girls aren't going to be down for knowingly engaging in a situation like that and investing fully into it. But this is an underrated issue and challenge with that type of lifestyle that isn't talked about much, and most guys won't be able to do this repeatedly. Most guys will end up committing to that girl that comes along, and that's fine, because I'd say that's a normal thing to do, right? But if you really want to run the numbers up, at some point you'll have to cut girls off that you really like, and that is not going to be a fun process for you, trust me. The alternative is to string them along and sell them dreams, but you're also asking for a lot of drama that way. So for me personally, it's not my thing. Now, the fifth one is pregnancy and STD scares. And it doesn't matter if most of the women you are sleeping with are on birth control or not, you will eventually come across a girl who either lies about it or simply isn't on birth control, and you'll want to smash anyway. And if you are a guy who uses protection every time, which you should be, you will eventually encounter scenarios where you either don't have one on you, or you figure it'll be fine and you'll just roll the dice anyway. Either way, a successful player lifestyle inevitably leads to buying some morning after pills at some point. You will never be 100% perfect, and you will have some scares along the way. Or even worse, you will knock up a girl who you didn't want to in the first place. Just look around, it happens every day to guys. And the odds of you getting an STD at least once are also extremely high. You just better hope it's something mild that can be cured in 2 weeks of antibiotics rather than something that sticks with you for a lifetime. Now, the sixth con is that you will become jaded to some degree. One of the downsides of gaining an immense amount of experience is the propensity to become jaded because of the good and the bad that you see. You will meet great girls along the way, but you will also come across the worst of the worst as well. You will discover girls cheating on their husbands or boyfriends with you, if you didn't already know that. Damn heathen. And you will also see things like girls calling you over to sleep with them after their date just left for the night. And if you're in nightlife environments, it'll be even worse, trust me. Working in nightlife is enough to make anyone jaded, but you can't gain a large amount of experience without seeing both the good and the bad. And it will be difficult to set the bad aside without becoming jaded yourself, at least to some degree, when you see how sex and attraction with women truly works firsthand. Now, the seventh one is an addiction to validation. Because in my opinion, the two most powerful drugs on earth are women and power. And a successful player lifestyle combines both of those. You will feel like a god at times with how many attractive women are pining for your attention and boosting your ego, which can lead to a dependency on validation that leaves you feeling empty and lost if you happen to go through a dry spell. This is what I was referring to earlier when I said it will build a lot of confidence in you, but there's also a downside. Sometimes guys aren't actually building true confidence. They're just getting results which boost their confidence on a superficial level, but their core identity and self-esteem is still weak, which is exposed with a dry spell or when they run into a series of girls that reject them, which will happen because it's not possible to hit home runs every single day. But ultimately, you are what you practice, and by practicing having tons of women around at all times, you will start to become dependent on it or addicted to the high, which can actually inflame needy behavior in certain ways or leave you relying too much on external validation if you aren't careful. And honestly, I'd say most guys won't be able to avoid this entirely because it's acting on biology in your brain with the hits of dopamine, serotonin, and all the other chemicals that are involved. Remember that too much of anything is bad, and it applies here too. Now, the next con is that it will be hard to be in a relationship. If the majority of your time with this kind of lifestyle is spent having fun and a positive experience overall, you will have a very hard time transitioning to a typical monogamous long-term relationship later on. The only exception to this is if you reached 100% total true burnout to where you are absolutely sick of the lifestyle and dating. Otherwise, if you enter into a relationship prematurely or you're simply so conditioned to the lifestyle from years of doing it, you will face challenges with getting bored easily with one girl, wanting more variety, or having difficulty even starting a relationship. You will also be tempted to bail on the relationship when small problems arise because you've never had to deal with that as a single man living that kind of lifestyle, and you are used to simply getting rid of a girl that is giving you a hard time or not satisfying your wants and needs 100%. So at some point, you will likely think to yourself, why would I sit here and deal with this when I can just go get another girl? And that is obviously not conducive to maintaining a long-term relationship if that's your goal. Another con is the time and money factor. Even if you are highly efficient with your methods of generating new leads with girls all the time, you will still be investing a significant amount of time into communicating with girls, setting up dates, inviting them over, running the dates, sleeping with them, the time after, etc. No matter what you do, it will eat into a significant part of your time and productivity as a man. It is not possible to be your most productive while also maximizing the number of women that you can date. And depending on what you do with these girls, it can also get financially costly quickly. If you go on dates, things like the gas, the Uber rides, the drinks, the food, the cover charges, or whatever else may arise will start to add up extremely fast. Even with low investment dates, which is what I prefer, this can add up fast if you're dating a lot of girls. But the bottom line here is that it takes time and money to do it right, and that's money and time that you could be saving otherwise. Not to say that it's not worth it, it's just a trade-off. Now, with all of that said, what are you supposed to do with this information? What type of lifestyle should you aim for? Well, overall, I've had great times in long-term relationships and also being single, dating a variety of girls for years. It's really up to each man to decide, and in many cases, pivotal moments will determine what you enjoy most. So for example, if you have a really bad experience dating or you're just really tired of it, that may push you away from staying single and toward finding a steady girlfriend. Or if you go through a really bad relationship, that may push you into being a player and staying single for a long time. Each guy is different, so it's impossible to recommend what is right for you, but at the bare minimum, I would say take some time to date a variety of girls to have some reference point of experience. Otherwise, you're likely to commit to the wrong girl due to your lack of experience. And when I say date a variety of girls, that doesn't mean that you have to sleep with all of those girls. I know some religious guys watch this channel, and also some guys just don't have the desire to sleep around like that, and that's fine. But I would advise at least dating and interacting with a variety of girls to create some kind of bank of experience to where you can identify the women who aren't good for you ahead of time before you get too invested. Now, if you need help landing dates consistently and optimizing your dating life, be sure to check the first link in the description, and there's still a lot more you need to know about the dating game. So make sure you watch this video next, and I will see you in the next one.